During the holidays, breakfast became a free-for-all around here.
Candy canes for breakfast! Woohoo!
Help.
Walmart makes it easy to get back into a breakfast routine with 30-ounce Kellogg's Mini Wheats bonus packs or 29-ounce Raisin Bran bonus packs, each only $3.68. Combined with milk, this breakfast packs a punch with protein and grains, so you start the day off right.
Awesome. Got anything for a nap time routine?
No!
Start strong. Save big. Walmart.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Waves of Healing. I'm your host, Leah Yekutiel. We are dedicated to communicate to you and provide you with information of being aware and keep open mind to alternative ways of healing, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. We invite you to live your life with purpose by trusting your own intuition. Our mission is to awaken your awareness where you can listen to your own truth. We inspire you in connecting with your own spirit where the healing takes place and create a lifestyle filled with health, wealth, joy, and happiness. In Waves of Healing show, we'll bring you energy healers, spiritual leaders, health-conscious personalities who will be answer to all your questions. I'm your host, Leah Yekutiel, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California, as I do every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. I'm a breast cancer victor, not victim, but victor, and the author of the book, Making the Breast of It, with the subtitle, Overcoming Fear of Intimacy After Mastectomy. If you want to learn more about my book, please visit my website at www.ilovemybreastcancer.com. All in one word, ilovemybreastcancer.com. And while you are visiting my website, please purchase my book and give a gift of love to somebody you love who went through breast cancer or mastectomy, where they can learn how to reclaim their femininity after mastectomy or breast cancer and build their self-confidence living with one breast or none, and accept their new image and love it. And the most important thing is to recognize that sexuality exudes from inside out and not from outside in. And the most important thing is they will learn how to connect with the spiritual aspects of life, which is everything, because we are not only body. So with that said, and I promise anybody who will order my book through my website, I'll personally autograph it to whoever you want it to send it to, and before it goes out, before it's shipped to whoever you want it to send to. And also wanted to say that the book is being made into a movie, and we are in search of capital investors who are interested in investing in such an important and educational subject as breast cancer. So if you know of anybody, please contact me, because this is very, very important, and I really thank you very much in advance. Now, I want to introduce our guest today, who is an incredible human being that I fell in love with him when I read a little bit about him. And my guest today is Dr. Dean Shrock. Many of you may know of him, but for those people who are not exactly familiar with him, I would like to tell you just a little bit about him, and so you'll get to understand what kind of person he is. So Dr. Dean Shrock served as a director of mind-body medicine for a physician management group of 40 cancer centers. Here he discovered that the only thing we are all looking for is peace of mind. His book, Doctor's Order, Go Fishing, and Why Love Heals, reveal how to find it. The secret is finding your joy. It is the key to accessing the life force, quantum energy that flows through everything. This all-pervasive energy is best described as love. Love is who you are. And when you remember this and love yourself, it transforms your life. It is why his research concluded that you need to feel loved and cared for. It allows for the flow of this life-loving energy. He then realized that healthcare must address the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. Now, after more than 30 years of study and experience, Dr. Shrock has dedicated his life to writing and teaching how to find your own true joy, greater health, and a deeper sense of inner love. And I want just to add that I read his book, Why Love Heals, and I was flabbergasted. What kind of research he did in order to get to those conclusions. So I would like to welcome Dr. Dean Shrock formally, officially, to my show, Waves of Healing. Are you there, Dr. Shrock?
Of course I am, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, well, you know, when I find people like you, it just, I need to introduce you to all my listeners. I mean, I just can't help it. Especially the book that I read. I mean, you know, when a doctor who is trained to prescribe medication talks that the best medicine is love in order to cure a cancer patient, I get melted inside.
Yes.
So that's why I wanted to introduce you to my listeners. So can you give us a little bit background in addition to what I said about you? It was just tip of the iceberg. So can you give us a little bit more background about yourself and how you got to write such a book and recognize how love is important in our lives?
Sure, I'll be glad to. Leah, what happened was that, when you're trained academically, everything must be based on research. And then whatever we do in terms of treatment must be based on research. Ethically and legally, that's simply the way it is. And so I certainly appreciate the limitations that we as professional health givers experience around what we do. And I had to learn, like you and others that love and some other factors that we don't study as part of our normal academic training. So here's how this happened for me. I am a psychologist, and I was very interested in guided imagery. Like self-hypnosis, the idea that the mind could actually affect your health or your behavior or whatever. And it was based on some personal experiences I had that really got my attention, because in my mind, prior to this time, this goes back to the 70s, there was no way the mind could do whatever people were proposing. However, you could stop smoking or lose weight or whatever else. But I took this self-help program back in the 70s, where I was first introduced to guided imagery, and within the first 2 years of having learned this, I stopped smoking. I was able to control my weight. I, most importantly, was at that time was able to control my hay fever. I had suffered from hay fever symptoms for 15 years. But the thing that really got my attention was when I was able to change a condition with my knee. I had torn up my right knee playing soccer in college many years before, and the orthopedic surgeon said that I would need surgery within 10 years, but I could try to rehab it. And so I did try to rehab it, and it turned out to be 12 years later, my knee really hurt, and I was becoming fairly immobile, so I assumed I needed surgery, but I had learned about guided imagery the year before. And so the doctor who taught me this said, hey, why don't you do guided imagery instead of surgery? And then I say, you don't really want to know what I said to this guy for proposing something that was so preposterous. How in the world could I, with my mind, change a condition in my knee that otherwise required surgery? But he had a way of getting my attention and challenging me. So he said, do it for a week. If it doesn't work, you can still have the surgery. Within 2 days, Leah, I had no pain. And by the end of that week, I had full use of my knee, and I've never had surgery. So that drove me to go back.
Within 2 days, you healed your knees? Just
in
by
2 days,
guided
I had
imagery?
no pain. And by the end of the week, I had full use of my knee. That's absolutely true. I've learned to downhill ski since. It's not like I haven't been normal in every way since that time, and I did not have the surgery. In fact, I was given a classification as my draft status. I was a young man then, and it kept me out of Vietnam. My knee was not misdiagnosed, and believe me, this caught me way off guard. I went back to school, and I was certain that still my mind was not that powerful. There was another reason to explain how I was able to do that. But I ended up with my doctoral dissertation on the subject of guided imagery, and obviously learned much more about the evidence showing that, in fact, guided imagery is a very effective tool. And then back in 2009, much more recently, I co-edited the chapter on mind-body medicine in Dr. Andrew Weil's newest text titled Integrative Oncology, looking at all of the mind-body literature, including guided imagery and how it's been used with cancer. So obviously I know scientifically or academically a lot about the subject, but in terms of how I got involved with this, that's how it started. And then after I got my degree, I interned with a rehab hospital and had got further experience then with how it could be used for people recovering from strokes and dealing with chronic pain. But while I was working with this rehab hospital, I also met Carl Simonton. And I know you and most of your listeners will know Carl because Dr. Simonton was the oncologist who pioneered using guided imagery with cancer. So I was blessed to have that opportunity to work with him, and then went on to teach a modification of his program when I became director of mind-body medicine for all the cancer centers. And that's when I learned much more about the will to live, and in fact that people found it too selfish when we were encouraging them to do what brought them the greatest joy in their lives. They couldn't do it. They believed that everyone and everything else should come first, and so that was a real eye-opener. And then when my patients ended up living significantly longer than those who only received conventional medical treatment, I couldn't comfortably say it was because of the will to live, because they weren't doing it. And that's when I relied on my clinical experience, and as I would go from one cancer center to another teaching, asking patients, okay, please tell me of what I taught you, what helped you and what didn't. And what they told me was what helped them wasn't any specific coping skill I taught them like guided imagery. It was that they felt listened to and cared for and supported. And so much like
just listening to them.
Yes.
Wow.
But I had to learn how that could really work. Now, it wasn't like I didn't know as a psychologist the importance of listening, but we're talking about remission with cancer. Yeah. And so when I was trying to draw conclusions then to write up my research, I remember then it was fortunate, although it was a lot of work, to look into the literature again. And there was a Dr. Dean Ornish who has worked extensively with heart disease, and he wrote a book called Love and Survival, where he made the conclusion that nothing heals more than feeling loved and cared for. And then in that process, I came across another psychologist whose name was James Lynch, who worked for 30 years at least at the University of Maryland doing research with heart disease. And he had concluded that feeling listened to and understood, having a heartfelt dialogue was essential. And he was able to show in research that it made a huge difference with heart disease also. So I felt like I wasn't too out of bounds in concluding that the reason why my patients did better was because they felt loved and cared for. But obviously, again, that was not part of my regular training when I went through school and all. So I'm pleased to be in a position now to talk about my experience and to write about it and to let people know. As you said, in my book, Why Love Heals, I give lots of perspectives and evidence why love heals, but that's my story, how I got to even discovering that love could have particular healing benefits.
Oh, wow, this is so great. So how would you define love then? How can a person extend love to another person? How is it done?
Well, I think I want to say more as a way to build up to really answer your question. Do you mind if I take a little time with this?
Please.
Okay. Well, remember, I live in my head a great deal. I'm very analytical. I'm trained scientifically. So when I was trying to understand why love heals, it was important for me, in fact, to try to define love. And so I went through a number of things, and it wasn't like I hadn't thought about this before and even taught about it before. But when you think about love and why it would be a good idea in any sense, on any level,
right?
I got to reading a book called Character, Strengths, and Virtues. Now, it's about 800 pages. It's a very academic book, and I can tell you that in the end what's really key about the book is that the authors, in fact, discovered that after looking at all of the scientific literature and all of the philosophic literature, so this was a huge effort on their part. I wouldn't even want to begin to undertake all that they had to go through to do this.
Right.
But they discovered that there were 6 core virtues that underlied all of these different systems and within the scientific literature. And they included wisdom and knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. And so when they were discussing these 6 core virtues and theorizing or hypothesizing why there would be these core virtues throughout all of human history, and they speculated it was because maybe they had some survival value for the species. So that really got me to thinking about that. How could that be true? And then I found when I was doing my personal investigation into quantum physics, and I don't want to pretend that I'm an expert in quantum physics, but I also want to say I'm not sure who is. But what I found was...
this is so correct.
Yeah. Depending on who you talk to,
exactly,
it's amazing how that the discoveries within quantum physics, people take such different viewpoints. But here's what I came up with and feels right for me. And there's one physicist in particular who stood out. But before I say that, I want to also say that in the early 1900s, I think maybe it's like 1917, Dr. Max Planck pretty much is considered the father of quantum physics or quantum mechanics. And by the 1930s, so within another 20 years, 4 of these men had received the Nobel Prize in Physics for what I'm about to tell you. So if it sounds a little bit much, I'm basing my statements on the work and conclusions of these true geniuses. Anyhow, what they all determined was that underlying all of what we understand as physical reality, so when we talk about atoms and then atomic matter and even subatomic matter, when we get down to the most finite stuff that underlies all of physical reality, Dr. Planck and others said that there was this quantum field, an electromagnetic field that underlies and connects all of matter. In fact, everything that does exist is an expression or manifestation of this quantum field. And that was another one of their conclusions, which was fascinating because of my interest in guided imagery. That is, at the ultimate level that we understand in terms of physical matter, matter as such is formless. We talk about whether matter is a particle or a waveform, but basically, essentially, it is formless. And only when it's observed or measured does it take form. So that's fascinating to then think about the qualities of this field and then also the power of a mind in order to create real physical stuff as a result of our consciousness or our awareness. So now I want to tell you about David Bohm, this theoretical physicist who was at Princeton when I was first reading about his work, and along with the others saying that there is this he called it a primary reality that underlied everything else. And what he said was that this field is an all-pervasive energy that is one of complete harmony. It's a force of compassion and concern for all of life, and that the ultimate nature of the universe is actually an energy of love. So there is only a quantum field of love, and we and all of creation are this life force manifesting in form. So love and self-love is the aligning of ourselves with this wholeness of our core essential nature. So love is who we are. It is who God is, or however we want to talk about the quantum field from different perspectives. Of God,
right?
So the quantum field is the Holy Spirit, the Tao, the Ki, the Chi, the life force.
Right.
It is everything, and we and all of what is physical is an expression of that life force, which then is really love. So you can change words like life or love or compassion, but it's fascinating that every quality ascribed to this quantum field is a quality you would ascribe to a concept of God. But it still comes back to that's who you are. And I say, honestly, this is me partly with a sense of humor, but I say our greatest ailment is I call forgotten identity. I wish I could create a whole new diagnostic code, forgotten identity. Because if you really knew who you were and how powerful you are, greatest therapy in the world.
Wow. Wow, you say it so in such a profound way, which I call that we are part of God, and you are giving so much more depth interpretation to it. So how can we apply it, all whatever you said, into our everyday life in order to heal ourselves, in order to love? Self-love is the most important thing, because if we do not love ourselves, I understand, we cannot love other people.
Right. But I want to make it, what for my mind is, I think, a little simpler perhaps to grasp. And that is that self-love is the aligning of yourself with your truth. And so it comes back to the virtues again. When you are being wise and knowing and courageous and loving kindness and being just and fair and temperate and forgiving and merciful and being humble and modest and transcendent, as it relates to beauty and gratitude and hope and so forth. When you are doing that, it has nothing to do with being good. You should be virtuous. It has to do with when you are expressing these virtues, experiencing them, you are aligned with love. You're aligned with your core.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So let me give you a visual that might help you and your audience.
Okay.
Sometime, somewhere in your schooling, you had this demonstrated for you, and this is a magnet. So imagine someone showed you just a simple magnet and then put a card on top of that magnet and then sprinkled iron filings on that card. You remember how the iron filings took the shape of the force field of that magnet?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what love does. When you are introduced or experiencing love, when you're introduced or experiencing love, the molecules of your body literally realign with the force field of love, with harmony and order. In fact, let me use another example parallel with electricity. We say when electricity is flowing, and it's flowing most optimally, we say it's in phase. In other words, when we try to measure electricity, we measure its resistance with an ohm meter. So if you can appreciate that when you are being most loving, you are most in phase. The life force energy is flowing optimally. When you are out of alignment with these virtues, when you're experiencing stress and negativity and so forth, you are restricting the flow of that life force energy. And so the key to loving yourself and the rationale for loving yourself is that you are maximizing the flow of the life force energy, which directly and dramatically affects your health and everything else.
Oh, wow, how fascinating.
Yeah.
How fascinating. And this feeling of love, is it in us?
It is you.
It is us. It is me. It is everybody. And we just have to learn how to access it. Am I correct?
Right. Obviously you can access it, and my first recommendation absolutely is meditation, is to access that core, essential core of who you are through meditation. But whenever you're expressing any virtue, and the one I love is really joy. In my first book, I say doctor's orders go fishing, around the will to live.
I love your title of this book.
Yeah. So I would say probably the most practical way, other than I found my patients found it difficult because they had come to believe that everyone and everything else comes first. But if people would honestly learn to make time and take time to do what they really love on a regular basis, it will absolutely contribute to the flow of that life force energy. And I'll go farther. Sometimes because, again, people think this is selfish, I'll give you an extremely altruistic reason for doing what brings you the greatest joy. And it's because not only are you allowing for this life force energy to flow through you more freely, but you are also not just a receiver, you're a broadcaster. And so the energy then that you now hold or feel is going out into the universe and literally affecting the structure and function of the universe. So this is not just a selfish activity to put yourself first by bringing greater joy. It's probably the healthiest and as good a thing as you could possibly do for others and yourselves by loving yourself, as you said. But it really means really aligning yourself with the truth of who you are. And again, I want to come back to make it a little more tangible by, naming the virtues themselves. So whenever you're experiencing joy, for sure, but some of these other qualities, you're going to maximize the flow of this energy for yourself. But then as you feel better, so are you then going to be this beacon of light or love and affect everyone and everything else.
Wow, yeah. You become the reflection of what you put out. And,
right. In fact,
the universe and other people pick it up.
In fact, that's very true. I'll tell you that I think the most sensible thing that has ever been put out by all philosophies, and that is, and this was my own investigation when I was early in my career and trying to make sense of suffering. I looked outside the box myself a bit at the time and looked at different systems and what they had to say about suffering. And I found in my own exploration that religions, firstly, and I mean this well, but they disagree on almost everything. But they managed to agree on two things I found. And one was that they all have what we call the golden rule. All philosophic systems have this belief that you should treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
But
love your neighbors like you love yourself.
Right. But here's the point I want to make about this. And if I ruled the world, and I could tell you there's absolutely one thing you wanted to do, it would be, in fact, treat others the way you want to be treated, because you reap what you sow. I couldn't be more certain of what I'm telling you. The reason why you want to be virtuous, not only because it allows for the way you're going to feel better and make life easier, but it's because, in fact, you reap what you sow. You are going to attract that to you or create it for yourself and for everyone and everything else. It is, to me, the key. If people could only understand that and live that.
This is the power of manifestation.
It is. And so whether or not you're practicing it on purpose, we call it deliberate intention or deliberate intention techniques like guided imagery or prayer or affirmations. Right. But all day long, every thought and feeling you have is affecting the flow of this life force energy and creating your life circumstances. So I remember one time I did a workshop on the law of attraction, and it was subtitled Why It Works and Why It Doesn't. And of course it works, but the reason why it doesn't is that because after people practice their deliberate intention, they don't realize they usually spend the rest of the day worrying and otherwise sabotaging their fine intentions with whatever they did, and so then they think it doesn't work.
Well, because they think, okay, I did my visualization or prayer or whatever, I did it for a half hour or meditation. Now I can go out in the world and be themselves. With negativity, it cancels one another. That's why law of attraction does not work for them. Am I correct? Is that what you're talking about?
That's my opinion, yes.
I see. Okay. So, I'm learning so much from reading these books, from interviewing people like you. And I learned about myself that I was not loving myself. This is really interesting. Just a year ago, or 2 years ago, I realized that I felt like my existence was to help other people. And then I realized this was so wrong. Because I needed to love myself first, to respect myself first. This was really shocking for me. So then I learned to say no. Whatever I did in the past, it was okay. That's what I believed. Now, now I have to take care of myself. Before, I put other people first. Isn't that something?
It is, and I think that's a great insight you've come to, although I would say there needs to be a balance. If you are love, if you are God manifesting in form, God, of course, is always interested in being of service. And there's a great deal of research, I think hundreds of studies now showing that service or giving is actually very healthy. But in perspective for most people, based on my experience, I would say it's like yours, is that people are far more oriented to doing for others and not taking care of themselves, and there needs to be a much greater balance.
This is very, very interesting what you say, because I recognize about myself. Here I'm doing this show. I'm dedicating my show to people like you who can enlighten other people, and I'm not getting I get satisfaction of helping, of exposing people like you to my listeners, but I'm not getting any let's say money for it or anything like this. So I don't know for myself. I don't know if I live in balanced life.
That's a very, very personal matter. When we come to think about the purpose of anyone's life, I would say it always includes learning to come to a greater understanding of who we are, which is love. So therefore, a greater understanding of love. But I believe within that, this is just my own personal opinion, that we all have taken on certain life experiences to develop certain qualities, or we could even say just simply to have different experiences. And so one of the things that really got my attention as a way of at least becoming more comfortable in understanding the purpose of life is when I read Neil Donald Walsh's series of books, Conversation with God.
Oh, yeah, he's one of a kind.
Yeah, and so one of the things that was said there, coming from God, is that one of the purposes, at least for human existence, is to experience what love is not in order to more fully appreciate what love is. Like the idea, what is hot without cold, what's up without down. And so when you experience what is not love, it actually, even though it sounds a little convoluted, it can make you appreciate what love is more so as a result of experiencing its opposite. And I remember an example given in Conversations with God is that, and it was fascinating to me that God chose to use a sports example, but he said, in a football game, if every pass were a touchdown, he said, do you understand before long, touchdown passes would become meaningless? And so you need interceptions and you need fumbles and you need other plays in order to make touchdowns meaningful. Okay. And so we could say that with love. And when Esther and Jerry Hicks and Abraham talk about it, they use the word contrast. And so you need contrast in life to actually help you make more sense of than understanding love, let's just say in particular. or the opposite of something. Believe me, I have my questions, and I've presented this to Spirit personally, but isn't there a better way to learn this? But at least that's my best take on it so far, that Earth and human existence is this unique opportunity to develop a way to understand love more fully. Although I'd like to say it more positively, I think it's just the most unique opportunity to experience your ability to create. When you know that you reap what you sow and that you literally can create your own reality, it's like, what a heck of an opportunity. When I think of what I pray for or what I would ever be grateful for, what more could I want than the ability to create my life?
The way you like it to.
Yeah.
And we
the fact
do have
is,
the opportunity to do that.
Not only the opportunity, it's the fact. Every thought and feeling you have is, in fact, moment to moment, creating your life. And you can do it deliberately, to be sure. But the fact is that you have that power and you have that ability.
So would you say that it can be done through meditation, through guided imagery, through prayer, or all the above, or through even yoga?
Absolutely, through all of it, you bet.
All of them.
Yeah.
And we really have to practice all of them. And
well, not so much that you want to say, okay, I'm making sure I'm going to do my yoga or whatever. Do what feels right or feels best. But certainly we know the benefit of meditation and we know the benefit of yoga and different practices. But rather than fill up your day thinking, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing this, is really, if you wanted to, make a list and prioritize for yourself, what is it that brings me the greatest joy and meaning in my life? When I teach my classes, I have people list their interests, and then I have a column where you list your needs, and then a column where you list your values, and then prioritize them again and say, okay, every day I'm going to take something from this list, and I'm going to do that. Things that make my life meaningful and bring me great joy. Instead of making it kind of like almost like homework and maybe a negative out of it, do what fills your heart, makes your heart sing.
What makes your heart sing?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Doctor's orders.
Dr. Shrock, I would like you to mention where people can go and get your book and you to get your books and learn more about you. And I know because I signed up for your newsletter and you send me every week you send me information and where people can go in order to sign up for free, I understand, right?
Yes.
To get all your information. So could you mention that? What is your website, please?
Sure, Leah. Thank you. Again, my name is Dean Shrock. So my website is www.dean, D-E-A-N, Shrock, SHROCK.com. And when you go to the website, you will see it's very clear where you can, simply by entering your name and email, get a free Why Love Heals e-course, a 6-part e-course, and also a free guided imagery audio on why love heals.
And
so that would be one thing I would recommend if they go to my website, deanshrock.com, and then also on the very front page there are buttons across the top, and if you click on products, that'll take you to a page where it lists my books, Doctor's Orders Go Fishing, Why Love Heals, and I have 2 guided imagery CDs. One is called Guided Imagery for Relaxation and Stress Management, and the other is Guided Imagery to Experience Why Love Heals, and all of those can be gotten right there on that page simply by clicking on a button there. And then lastly on that page, I have a 7-part teleseminar I did on how to transform your life, and I really recommend this if people are really interested in learning about what I think, I call them the pearls. You know, after all the years of study and experience, I put together this program. These are the things that I think are key to helping you transform your life. And that program also is available on that page on my website.
So now you give these programs online, or you travel all over the country and teach these programs, or how does it work exactly?
Okay. The How to Transform Your Life program was done originally as like a webinar or a teleseminar, and that was only taught as a something that was on the internet or that you can download. Now, to be certain, I could teach that live. It's just that I haven't done that. But what I have done, Leah, and this is brand new. Well, actually, I'm going to go back and say that it's actually an update of what I taught originally when I wrote my book, Doctor's Orders Go Fishing. It was about the program that I taught for 11 years to all of the cancer centers and patients and families, and that we researched and found, as I said earlier, affected survival with cancer. And then after I wrote up my research and I wrote that first book, I got back into working with some physicians and helping them with chronic pain and some other things. And then when I wrote Why Love Heals and all the time it took to do that and to put it goes into the marketing, I was amazed at how much time that took. I got away from teaching. And so now I'm getting back to my own real passion, which is teaching. And so when you ask, am I doing anything live? In fact, starting next month, I'm going to go back out live again, and I'll be glad to teach even every day. And I'm probably going to maybe limit it to 4 or 5 days a week. But going around to hospitals and wellness centers and wherever else someone is interested. And I'm still going to use the book, Doctor's Orders Go Fishing, but I've updated it. I've revised it, especially the information on nutrition and exercise, because there's so much more known about the impact of nutrition and exercise today, and certainly specifically with cancer. And then I created a new workbook, which I love. I'm calling it Living and Thriving, a mind-body-spirit program for wellness. And then I also created a new guided imagery CD that goes along with that. And so I will be out live and am available to go out and teach live. And as part of teaching, it's a 12-hour program, so it can be done either once a week for 6 weeks. But if I'm going to really travel, it would have to be done on a weekend. But it could be done on a weekend, and then the revised book and workbook and CD will only be available through that program for people who take part in the live program. That's what I'm so looking forward to now is getting back out there and teaching live.
Oh, this is wonderful, because I believe totally that you mostly teach in the hospitals and cancer centers, or are there doctors who are taking your classes as well?
Are you asking me if any physicians have ever attended my classes? Of course.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This is great, because people, even doctors, the Western doctors, are more recently exposed to what you are teaching.
Right. In fact,
and the power of love in our life. And this is such a good news, because I feel like the medical establishment are totally embrace medication with all kind of side effect and all this kind of stuff. And what you prescribe is love with no side effect and with growth and self-love. And what I love about your research, that it's not done academically research, scientifically research, but what you did, you combined your own life, and you learned from experiencing it on your own life, and then you learned how to apply it to and teach other people how it works.
Right. It was because of my experience in working with thousands of patients and their families that I learned that people found it selfish to do what they really loved. And then the bigger surprise was that it was because they felt loved and cared for that made the difference. Right. And to add to the idea of physicians becoming more aware or interested in my work, I'm currently applying for approval to get continuing education credits for psychologists, for social workers, for nurses and physicians. So by the end of the year, and certainly going into next year, the new program I've developed, Living and Thriving, will not only be taught live, but people can attend it to get continuing education credit for all of these professional health care providers.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful because as far as I know, doctors don't really, it's not mandatory for them to take any nutrition classes or anything to do with the mind besides prescribing medication. So this is a new perspective. And,
right.
and if it's going to be implemented into the medical establishment, then that would be wonderful.
Right. Well, then I have even more good news for you. Since we spoke last, I've become more involved with a new academy. It's called the Alpha Academy of Healing Arts and Sciences. It's based in Southern Oregon, where I live, and we are applying to the state of Oregon, where we will be a certified school where we're going to teach much more about all of this, and our faculty will include physicians and psychologists and social workers and nurses, and people will be able to similarly attend that academy. The classes begin next spring, and if people are interested, if people are interested in going to my website again, deanshrock.com. At this moment, I don't have a link. I will within a week, I'm sure, have a link to the academy. But if they want to stay abreast of this, then they could find out where I'm teaching my program if they want to get continuing education credit, or when we have more information about the academy and how they could also participate in that as well.
Oh, this is wonderful news.
Yeah.
Wonderful news. You've been working very hard on this issue, and that's what I love you so much.
Well, you
really,
say it's working hard, but it's my passion, and I'm just so pleased now that I'm at a point in my life where I don't have a private practice. I still do consultations, but where I've truly, as you said at the beginning of the show, have now devoted my life to writing and teaching, which is what I really love.
Yeah, well, you found your niche, I guess. I think, huh?
I think so.
Good for you. Good for you, Dr. Shrock. I mean, I'm telling you, this is just incredible material, incredible advancement in the medical establishment, and you are the powerhouse in order to bring it to the masses.
I'm going to do my darndest between you and me, huh?
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you accepting my invitation to be on my show, because I need people like you in order to bring a little bit more tranquil in this life, in this hectic life that we live in, and in this driven life that we have to do so many different things that put so much pressure and stress that causes all these sicknesses. Now, I wanted to ask you a question about cancer being It's happening more and more and more to a lot more people. Why is that?
Well, I don't know why I want to say specifically cancer as much as I'm more comfortable talking about chronic disease in general. So whether it's cancer or heart disease or diabetes, something like that, I think it's because the conventional approach to dealing with these diseases is more focused on managing the symptoms instead of what has really led to these conditions in the first place, which I'm convinced is lifestyle. If you're going to cure these chronic diseases, you've got to look at lifestyle, nutrition, fitness, and stress management in particular, and or certainly the spiritual aspect of learning to love yourself. And it's going to manifest one way or another. There's a theory within mind-body medicine, it's called a weak link theory, that whenever you experience stress, and by my definition, it's anything that's in opposition to love or oneness, it's going to manifest within the body as I call it a benevolent messenger. So that might sound odd to you or your listeners perhaps to think of your cancer as a loving messenger, benevolent messenger, but it's simply a symptom letting you know that the body's out of balance. And when you realign with love or otherwise because you are physical, and then you do eat better and you do exercise and you do manage your stress, that is the key to chronic disease and specifically cancer.
Now, I totally understand your answer, which is I agree with it totally. Now, I'm puzzled why we still have all these diseases if we claim that everything is under control, like American Cancer Society claims that there are less cancer patients and there are less people who are affected by all kinds of diseases. How it simply does not make sense to me. Things don't add up for me in my head. If all these organizations claim about prevention and all this kind of stuff, how come the number of people with chronic diseases increases?
Well, while we talk about it, I don't think it's implemented very well. And as you noted earlier, that medical schools today usually don't require medical students to even study these wellness factors. So it's simply not part of our mainstream understanding of what we need to do to be well. But when you look at today's circumstances around the world and the economic crisis and all of the warring and, terrorism, et cetera, is this in alignment with love?
No, it's
so
not.
You're going to have benevolent messengers, experiences to feedback, to let you know something's out of balance. Yeah. And that's the blessing in disguise, is that sometimes you have to get hit over the head by a 2x4 before you pay attention.
So true.
Hey, let me mention one more thing. I just realized that the Alpha Academy of Healing Arts and Sciences does have its website up now. So if you or your listeners are interested, you can go to www.alpha, A-L-P-H-A, academy.com, and you can see the website for the academy, which, again, we will begin teaching classes next spring, but you can at least get a good sense of what we're up to there.
Okay. Can you repeat that? The Alpha Academy?
The alphaacademy.com.
Okay. The alphaacademy.com.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm afraid we have to... we're always short of time. We have 1 minute left to go. So if you would please mention your website,
okay,
which is www.Dean Shrock, DEAN SHROCK.com. And the other one is the alphaacademy.com. And I really thank you so much, Dean, for being a guest on my show, because you have so much important messages to add to us. And I also want to thank the listeners. And please go and visit Dr. Shrock's website, because you'll get so much information and free e-courses, and it'll be wonderful. And I would like to introduce my guest for next week, who is Dr. Margaret Paul, who wrote the book, Do I Have to Give Up Me to Be Loved by You? So please tune in for our next week show. And I thank you, everyone, very much for listening to the show, for Dr. Shrock being a guest on my show again. And this is Leah from ILoveMyBreastCancer.com signing off for today. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What the hell is going on?